everyone, I'm Michael Swaim.
Hi, I'm David Bell.
Hi, I'm Abe Epperson.
I'm Tom Ryman.
And we just watched the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Scruggs.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it so hard.
I think we got it though,
Yeah,
guys.
Yeah.
that's perfect.
Let's
There are
move
no
on.
second takes in
No.
podcasting.
Yeah.
I'm Buster Scruggs.
You're shooting ironwork.
Appears to do, yes.
So, someone explain what this is briefly. What are we doing?
We're Flintstones meeting the Jetsons right
Yeah.
now.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes
Our
it the
sister
present.
channels.
Yeah.
Our lovely.
It's like when the Harlem Globetrotters came to Gilligan's Island.
Right.
Had
Small
sex with the
beans.
Scooby-Doo gang.
Yeah.
and gainfully unemployed. Together at last for the first time ever.
That's true.
Hoping to have watched Buster Scruggs together like a real friendship.
Right.
But at least we met after to talk about it.
Oh, yeah,
like an entertainment friendship.
Those plans exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving fuck.
Well,
plans.
that's the beauty of streaming, though, is we could all just fuck off and watch it ourselves.
Yeah.
And it was fine.
Yeah.
Yes, and we are here to discuss Buster Scruggs. I think pretty much formatless. So first and foremost, like, what were everyone's initial impressions? We have not compared notes at all, which is great.
No,
No,
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't
haven't
do that.
talked about the movie at all.
Which is unusual for you guys, right? For Coen Brothers?
Very much so.
Yeah.
And it's even unusual that, like, you got here early, Tom. We're
Yeah.
recording my place.
Yeah.
It's unusual that we were able to
Not
keep
say a word,
ourselves
yeah.
from tipping
Right.
into, what did you think of the movie? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so how
we-
about that fifth one?
We've
Say a
gotten
thing about
pretty
it.
good at not talking about it
Yeah.
until we start
Yeah.
recording.
Oh, you
Sometimes
guys-
it's very hard.
Yeah.
Since it's a thing we do every week now, where we just leave the theater in like lockjawed silence.
Well,
Yeah.
I imagined, because I imagine you walking out of Suspiria wanting to say, like, that was boring, right? It's not just
Right.
me that was boring.
we didn't make it all the way out of Suspiria. We did like I think I said that was 2.5 hours long, and you're like, yep, it's like didn't need to be.
We've had like really passive ways of communicating that we didn't like something.
Just like a curt nod, and
Yeah,
like, oh, I
it
know what
just-
he's going to say.
I do remember like 2009 and Wally when I like looked over at Michael because we watched it together and like he caught my eyes and we just nodded.
Yeah.
And then
Because our eyes were like shining with
Yeah,
tears.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then there's other movies where we like look at each other and just shake our head. Like I think that was one of the Star Wars, The Force Awakens or something like that. You and
I
were-
think it was when
What's
Poe,
going on?
when Poe makes the on hold joke, we looked at each other and we're like, is this the Star Wars? Or is this a joke?
Is this SNL?
Oh,
right now?
the newest one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the weirdest.
Hey, Admiral Hooks, don't you know how hold works? I don't know. It's the year 4,000 or whatever. Why would I know how being on hold in the 80s works? All right, Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
So it's on Netflix. It's Coen Brothers. It's an anthology movie. There's
Yes.
6 parts.
It was originally designed to be a show, I think, released in
They have said no.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
okay.
that was apparently just a rumor.
Yeah, they said it was always intended to be released as this, and it's based on a number of who writes stories, Joel or is it Ethan?
They do everything tandem.
Oh, okay.
Right. It was based off.
Credits are nonsense
Well,
to the
but
Coen Brothers.
really, even
Yeah.
though one always is director, one's always
Yeah, it's
producer,
nonsense.
it just means they're there together doing their thing.
Like 6 or 7 movies ago, they started getting both billing, like they both produce and direct.
But for some reason, like union rules, they couldn't do that before.
but
I think so, yeah.
Ethan was the producer and Joel was always the director at the beginning of their career, but that's nonsense. Just like Roderick Janes is not a real person who also
Right.
edited this movie. That's a pseudonym for their editorial collaboration.
Yeah,
It's to
and
get around
Roderick
unions.
Janes is maybe the best editor alive, and I like to think of them as a different person.
Yeah.
Because it's like Donald Glover syndrome, where
just
it's
this
like,
guy,
why
just-
are you good at every fucking thing?
They're
Yeah.
Michael Kahn.
Yeah.
Just this guy who's like silent. We know nothing about him, and he edits all of our dreams and history.
But yeah, so 6 stories, apparently always intended. I thought
They
they
were-
put the framing device in after. But,
Yeah, they were
no.
apparently written over like last 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
Wow.
there's some like conflicting stories about this, but I guess they were stories that they've just been sitting on for a while.
And they're probably like, when are we going to get to our shorts out?
Yeah,
Like,
there's
this is the
some you
way.
can tell. But like I feel like insisting that the titular segment existed as a short story is nonsense. because that can exist as a short story.
Yeah.
I also think
'Cause it's
calling
so
it
musical.
the Ballad of Buster Scruggs gives that segment undue weight
Yeah.
when they're all kind of pretty
Well,
equally interesting and important. I didn't think
Here's-
Buster Scruggs was like, and I guess just because it's BS, I don't know.
I think
Is
it
that
all-
the pun?
my-
Why does
yeah.
that encapsulate all
My
the stories?
theory is that when I started watching this, I had known at one point it was an anthology, totally forgot. And so when it's just like, okay,
We're done, Tim.
we're
Blake
done with
Nelson.
Buster Scruggs. Like, I think, and that was, it feels like part of the point of the movie. Because the movie is about just fucking chaos and death.
I will. I
mean,
do.
no,
I don't know if I think that.
I do like this
Oh,
movie.
okay.
My initial impression is it's such a fucking bummer. Like
The West is a bummer, or
the
life
West
is the bummer.
The West is a
Or
bummer,
the
and like the
Coens are
first.
relentlessly a bummer. Most
They're
of the time.
nihilistic
Most of the
in their
time,
approach.
I feel like the first man, that first, like you're talking about, calling the whole movie "The Ballad of Buster Scruggs" gives the first segment undue weight. I feel like that's true because I feel like that segment sets a tone that none of the other ones match, in my opinion. Like the tone of "The Ballad of Buster Scruggs" feels like a wacky Coen Brothers movie,
Yeah.
like a Raising Arizona, Burn After Eating, and the rest of the movie
Hudsucker.
is so not
Or
that.
friggin' Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of this movie, though, is that we get all of the Coen brothers, it feels like. We get every aspect of them
Yeah.
for the most part because they could change tones so much through the shorts.
Yeah, tonally, this movie is insane to me.
Yeah.
I'll jump in. I'll be the first one jumping on that because, like, I kind of agree and disagree.
No one has said whether they like it.
I'm just
yet.
going to come out and
absolutely
say
love it.
I loved it.
Yeah, I love it.
I was ready for it to rank in the bottom of their canon.
It's in,
and
like,
I
top
think it
8.
ranks in the top. I really
Yeah.
like it. Yeah.
So
Tom,
here's how I can.
suspiciously silent.
Yeah.
He said he liked it.
I like it for the most part.
Okay. And we'll unpack that.
Yeah.
Because that's all we have to do.
I
here.
want to address something because, like, I know I know exactly what you're saying because tonally, it's like there are similarities in the other ones, and it's all based on theme, right? It's all, and the theme was elucidated, I think, by Dave just by saying like there is a chaotic element
Right.
to
Well,
the West. Yes.
I'm gonna kind of add to that. Chaos and death. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
no,
I think that's there's a lot of I think the Tom Waits one, I know I'm skipping ahead, kind of encapsulates the whole film in a way because it's
Yeah.
like balance, chaos, cruelty,
I
death.
actually agree.
Yeah.
And I think with the first one and the last one might be my favorite.
Yeah.
The first one and last one, I like to think of them more as bookends for the anthology. Like, not that they are not their own stories, but like, to me, this is a love story by the Coens about this crazy film thing that we did called Westerns, where people are crooners and singing and shooting, and that's why tonally it's so bizarre. And tonally, like, he's just like a psychopath killing a bunch of people.
Oh, Buster, yeah.
And singing and being the songbird, like, and then the last one is a haunting, much akin to like James Joyce's The Dead, where it's
Yeah.
like you're unsure of whether or not they are alive or dead. And they're being passed off to the next thing. This is them, to me, putting to bed all of the things that we thought about the Old West in movie making as like something that's romantic. It's the death of romance to me. And it's a lovely, and to do it in a song is like fucking hilarious to me.
I would, except for right in the middle, you got that Tom Waits thing, which is nothing but romance, right? Like that's like an idyllic version of the West.
That's the thing, is that was my realization watching this, is that whatever the cinematic, I don't know if it's the historic version of the West, but the cinematic version, to me, is kind of how beings should have stopped in terms of technology and being like, it's a symbiotic relationship with nature. And the Tom Waits one kind of
With the bird. And,
with the
and
him
Mr.
not
Pocket.
taking too much and like him not leaving too much of a mess
I
and the
agree.
animals kind of fucking off while he's there. It like that's what I mean by it's chaos and death, but it's also like it's kind of okay. Like they're not treating death like it's the worst thing ever, I guess.
Right. All right.
Well, very much so in like that one and the James Franco one where he's just sort of ambivalent about his own execution.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean that he sees a pretty girl and says there's a pretty girl and then is hanged? You know, like, is that just to say that life is relentlessly constant, or it's constantly giving you new offers and taking away offers at the same time?
Maybe. It's the only splash of color in that bit, too.
Yeah, it is.
Like, she's in blue and everything else is in washed out earth tones.
Also, the only one without a song.
Right. That
Yeah.
might have, it's not my favorite one, but it might have my favorite moments in it, which is the punchline of him going first time to the guy, the guy crying. And then, of course,
Stephen
fucking
Root.
pan shot.
Stephen Root.
And
killing
Stephen
it.
Root, yeah.
Pan shot. I have aggressively different interpretations of any of everything.
Oh, I can't wait.
That was said so far.
Go ahead.
No, but my outpouring of the overarching theme is, I think the overarching theme is entirely formalist and there is no content theme. I think this is Hail Caesar for Westerns. The reason Ballad of Buster Scruggs is so tonally different is because they sat down knowing they wanted to make a love letter to every possible subgenre of Western, and one of those was stupid, shitty musicals like Paint Your Wagons, so they had to nod to that. I think that's the extent of it. I really do. I think each of the six is a clearly different homage to a particular film, usually in the Western canon, where you're like, oh, like Near Algodones is spaghetti Westerns.
Yeah, they've said as much too.
Oh,
Well, they've said
I didn't
they
know
said that each one they took inspiration from various like books and
but like a
Westerns and
specific
stuff.
subgenre, I think. Like The Gal Who Got Rattled, to me, well, see, I like
Yeah.
to compartmentalize.
All right,
know, I know.
all
We'll
right.
get
Let's
there.
start with the first one.
All right.
with Tim
You
Blake
like your
Nelson.
form with Coen
Yeah.
Brothers.
I do.
This. Oh no! Are we starting? Are we starting with the
Yeah, let's
first one?
do Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Yeah.
All right. I'll just say this is one of two shorts in this that I could have watched happen for 6 hours.
right.
Yeah.
It could have been a full length
Rooting
movie.
and shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I watched it. I've watched this movie several times now with other people watching it because over Thanksgiving family members wanted to watch it and such. And everyone always universally mentions, first of all, the people who know film, I've heard at least two people be like, within the first 3 minutes, they're just so good at filmmaking. Like the shots where they show the water echoing off and joining him in the chorus, and the color palette that they finally landed on of that
Water.
wide shot of his introduction. It's like the WNBA where you're like just amazed by the incredible application of the basics. They're so good at lighting. They're so good at composition.
Yes.
Mary Zofries is the best costume designer there is alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carter Burwell may be the best
Ellen
composer.
Chenoweth is
You're
the
right.
best casting.
They're all the best
of all the time.
and they're just all so fucking good. And nothing is like Guy Ritchie-ish or inventing like, or even Breaking Bad, where you're like, whoa, the camera's attached to the pickaxe.
Well-
but it's just like everything's perfect.
That's always some of the best filmmaking. I think we talked about it a few times that like Richard Donner is a director who's just like, yeah, I'm just going to tell the story. I'm not going to fucking stick myself into it
Yeah.
and be like, look at me, look what I can do. Like it's just it's not basic. It's just very
transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing that people always said is his voice is so beautiful,
Tim
especially
Blake Nelson?
especially about the guy who comes at the end.
Oh yeah.
And
guy-
takes him
every-
out.
well,
His
I
final
looked-
song,
I
they're
looked
like,
up who
"That
that-
guy's voice is gorgeous.
I looked up who that guy is because I was like, he looks like a million actors.
He looks like
He's
Tim Oliphant. to
Yeah,
me.
he's a country singer. And it was like,
That checks out. And like you were mentioning the casting. I had to look like every single, like the Coen Brothers films are so well cast, and you said who was the casting director?
Ellen Chenoweth.
Like I feel like every single featured supporting character is like I should know who that is because they're like so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're distinctive.
And then I end up looking like 9 times out of 10 I end up looking them up and it's like I've never seen this person before.
Yeah.
But it's
I
just
was
they're
like
so perfect in the role.
so surprised by like, how do I not know who Bill Heck is?
The
Yeah.
friend-
Yeah,
who's
that guy.
Which character is it?
He was in the fifth with
He's,
Alice
Billy-
Longbow.
Billy,
He's
um,
Mr.
He's the guy that's going to marry
Okay.
Big
Oh, yeah.
Sick.
Originally.
I think this is skipping
Billy
a hill.
Knapp,
My
Billy Knapp.
favorite,
Knapp.
was the fucking judge in the James Franco line.
Oh
It just
shit!
goes,
Yeah.
Oh, he's good.
Good enough, hang him.
Good enough, ham.
The one that actually moved me to look him up was the Frenchman in the final section.
Oh man.
Oh, that's
like,
Saul Rubinek.
I was
Yeah.
like, I know his face, and based on this performance, I should know his name. 'cause he's so
I had
good.
just rewatched Unforgiven recently, and he's the journalist following English
Oh,
Bob
wow.
around in
That
that.
is
makes
right.
sense.
That is absolutely
So it's
right.
like, oh, of course he's in this.
A friend of mine also asked, like, he was annoyed that they included heaven because he is a nihilist and a hardcore atheist and likes that they are, or wants to believe they are. And was like, why is there heaven explicitly at the end of Buster Scruggs? And I just pointed out that the heaven has only appeared in 2 of their movies, Hudsucker Proxy and this segment. Heaven only exists in movies that they think are like a ludicrous joke.
Right.
Yeah.
So I still think they're true to their beliefs.
Oh yeah.
Go
'Cause
Eagles.
It's not.
Right, like
it's not like a realistic portrayal of heaven. It's the
there's-
angel wings and fucking harp.
There's
No.
definitely a heaven in the version of the world that exists in Oklahoma, or like
Right.
Seven
Yes.
Brides for Seven
Yeah,
Brothers.
and with like
So,
Norman Barnes, he's a good old boy. Buster Scruggs, that's the comedy comes from the fact that he thinks he's a good old boy.
Right.
You know, like
kind
it's-
of Bugs
I think
Bunny.
yeah, it is.
That's what it is. Is that he's like our hero, but they don't shy away from the gore of him shooting these people.
well, and he's so joyous about
Yeah.
killing people.
But it is Bugs Bunny because
Yeah,
like
he's
if
very
you
Bugs
took
Bunny.
Bugs Bunny and you showed Elmer Fudd actually blowing his brains out
Yeah.
accidentally, like
And
it's
then
that.
singing Surly Joe.
Yeah.
Like,
So
he
fucking
improvises a song about your death. And I love how his brother comes in, which makes it real.
Yeah.
You're like, why is the saloon singing about my brother's murder?
You best be outside wearing iron.
Dave Krumholtz, very legendary LA stand-up.
Yeah.
This guy that gets all his fingers shot
Yeah.
off.
I don't know. David Krumholtz is sitting at the table. He's
Oh,
the,
you're
he's the
right.
freshman.
You're right.
The
Sorry.
brother is another character actor who I didn't recognize, but he's like so forceful and
voice-
convincing
I
in
looked
his
him up,
performance.
which
I
is
looked
why
him
I got
up. Yeah,
confused. Yeah.
And Clancy Brown, is that?
Clancy Brown.
Clancy
yeah.
Brown.
Clancy
Surly
Brown getting his
Joe.
face
Yeah.
fucked up. That is one of the coolest
That is so
kills.
wild. Yeah, he just
kill.
stomps on the table.
Like 3 times.
Sometimes your strategy's got to be downright or comedian.
So good.
Yeah.
How
Any-
many of y'all paused on the book pages to read all the
I
book
did.
pages? I did.
I'm going to on a second watch.
I sped read because I watched
Yeah.
it twice now, and I like this time I was like, okay, fucking.
Oh
read
yeah,
it.
well, I guess we'll talk about it when we get to the gal who got rattled. But the color plate for the gal who got rattled gives it away, which is a little bit of a
yeah.
bummer.
Yeah, it's true.
Let's wait till we get there
Yeah.
because I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
questions. But
Yeah,
if I just wanted to note that in the printed story as the page turns,
yeah.
you can see what the priest says when Buster Scruggs is laid to rest, which is, "We give him to you as he gave you so many. We give him to you, O Lord, and humbly ask that you never give him back."
It's
Which
pretty
is
good.
an echo of the last song by Brandon Gleeson.
Hmm.
But anyway,
Ooh.
we'll talk about that later.
Should we move to number 2?
Sure. I mean,
Unless
I
there's
will say,
more.
like, unless I'm confused, the one like weird, like, hey, look at me thing that it does, and I'm sure it probably means something. Like that's like me watching No Country for Old Men, where I'm like, I know this means something.
yeah.
That last speech in No Country, I know this fucking means something. It cuts to inside Buster's guitar.
Yeah.
wow, I was gonna mention that one.
It's almost Sam
That's
Raimi-ish.
less transparent because you were
Yes.
like saying like Breaking Bad, like put the camera on the
Yeah.
That is
shovel.
the shot that I was like, don't bring it up because it ruins
It's like-
your premise.
It's and the sound is muffled.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be deafening inside the guitar?
Yeah.
Because
There's the shot at the beginning of Serious Man where they're inside an ear hole and you're hearing "Want Somebody to Love." I think they are enamored of being in a tiny space where the sound echoes. Because there's also the Barton Fink going in the drain hole shot.
Right.
The sound changes as you enter it.
Yeah.
They don't do it that often, which
But we'll-
implies that it means something
But
when
that's
you
what I
do
was gonna say.
it.
If they do it 5 times over the course of their career, the idea of a tube where sound is different means something to them. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think. I honestly think it's the song duration and the visuals that they had to use. They
Oh,
were
I think
thinking of
maybe it was
shots.
contrasting because it was showing his voice echoing off the canyon, and then it cuts into a tiny space where it's
Right, the
echoing.
tiny little.
I mean,
Canyon.
that segment
Yeah.
is telling you focus on the music, and it gets you to
Right.
focus on the music by
Right.
making it center stage.
which
but,
I got from the title.
But again, that's just basics, filmmaking basics.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not my favorite shot, but it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It was just a nitpicky thing. It's like, wouldn't it be really loud?
It's the kind of shot,
there?
yeah, and it's the kind of shot a lot of directors would think of and throw in to be cute. The overhead 3/4 shot of Buster's dead body with the angel rising up and
Yes.
the man in black walking away was so perfectly surreal and mundane.
That
Like
was
it,
so good.
it really looked like an image out of a dream or a Lynch movie or something.
This is
It was
definitely.
dope.
This is like a.
Bruce Del Bono, we should say, shot this film.
I can't think of the actual title of this. I had a film critique class in high school, and one of the things my teacher would love to show us is like surrealist anthology films and stuff like that. This sort of reminded me of like, I want to be a teenager and get high and watch this because like it has that feeling where it's like oddly surreal, and that shot is what actually made me think of it because it was just like such a great fucking weird surreal moment.
Salvia could, if you took a few hits, could maybe last the length of Buster Scruggs short.
I think the whole thing.
Oh, the whole movie. Okay.
I mean, it would get a little bit of a bummer later.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to number 2, Near Algodones, which
Franco.
in my
Yeah.
mind is the love letter to the man with no name sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
This
He
was
literally
Yeah,
doesn't have a
spaghetti
name.
western. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to begrudgingly say James Franco did a good job. in
Yeah, he's
this.
good in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He
Did he
did.
have a lot to do?
He sort
But
of
he does
did.
it well.
He
There's
sorta
one
did? Okay.
moment that I was
Okay.
like, good job, is when he's getting hung a second time and his face is just like, motherfucker. Like he has
Like,
this
oh,
face.
the twists and turns
Yeah.
the Lord hath wrought. Yeah.
And he has the perfect
Mother
expression
McCree.
for it.
But it's still, I heard Patrick Walsh, just a comedian I like, say that, but Stephen Root is like acting fucking like tap dancing circles and doing car wheels around him. And I
Yes.
agree with that.
Yes.
Stephen Root is unstoppable.
Well, you give Stephen Root a wacky old country voice and just let him
Right.
talk. Yeah, it's going to be just a whirlwind.
But that's the thing. I feel like that was part of the point is like James Franco the whole time is he's just like doesn't speak much,
Yeah,
very
no.
serious. And everybody else around him is a maniac.
You ever gone robbed?
Stephen Root's reaction to the gun being pulled on him is maybe my favorite acting movie in the whole thing.
It's like you could. It's almost like they
Masterful
could have
acting.
put a shitting sound and it would have played. Like that's his whole body feels that, which is great because he's like super prepared for it and like in his element when he's
He already
being
has
robbed,
pulled guns there and talks about how he's like shot people's kneecaps off.
laughing maniacally, and shot. You know, like he's crazy. He's a crazy man.
Question:
shot.
was that Clancy Brown who's administering sentence? Like, is Surly Joe also the one hanging him, or is that a guy who just kind of
no.
reminded me of him?
That
Okay.
guy is in The Witch and Hurricane
Gotcha.
Heist.
Yeah.
Then
What a
in that
voice.
case,
He's
there
a-
really are no, like, there's not like Easter eggs, right? In the
Right.
6, I didn't catch any. They are disconnected.
I love
I
that
believe so.
he has that little small because everything's super curt with him. He has that little small bit, and it's just like haunting. He's like, you were kind of out of it, but we like past sentence. It was this, and then we came here, found this here tree to pass sentence. You know, like
Yeah.
just go to a tree, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the end of your life.
And his response is, well, what's the sentence? And they all laugh.
And then he's like, "Do you mind giving your horse to one of these boys?"
I don't want any of them
that-
to have it.
So, no, you can't have my horse.
And his last
You
words are
gotta die
just
selfish. Yeah.
his last words are or this last statement is about how Stephen Root's a maniac, basically.
I don't think
fight fair.
I don't think that
fought
banker
fair.
fought real fair, in my opinion.
I don't think that pan shot fell is half fair. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but total Easter eggs, obviously, to the classic spaghetti westerns. They're using that's the twist from Fistful of Dollars is pan shot, but instead of
Right.
being secret, it's I have a million pans and they're really visible.
Also, I want to frame that the art that they have for that. Where
Yeah.
he's like, he
Oh,
looks
you want
like,
that in your home?
Yeah, he looks
Yeah.
like a video game character. Like
Pan
he's,
shot.
he looks amazing. Like
If
I
there
want-
was a video game, there would definitely be a boss fight where you take the pans off one by one before
Yeah.
you damage them.
right. Yeah, I find that one pretty excellent. Like we talked about, it didn't have a song, which I thought was interesting. It does technically have a theme, but then the theme kind of is played by the rest of the movie later. Like the,
You mean score theme?
yeah, the score theme, as opposed to like someone actually singing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the odd one out. I wonder if that means anything or it's just nothing at all.
Well, I also I felt like it was the one that had the most nods to really famous other westerns.
Right.
Like Maverick opens with
Yeah.
guy and the horse about to be hanged, but they did it in their own way. The pan used in a different way. And like I liked how in the opening shot you're introduced to the bank exists and the
Yeah.
well exists. And they both have signs. You can read the bank sign. It says "and notary." And
Yeah,
then
right.
you can't read the well sign. Then on his way out of the bank, you can read the well sign, and it says "bad well, don't use." And then he immediately uses it as cover.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if that was a nod to like, even useless things can be repurposed. This is our way of taking the spaghetti western and redoing it, refreshing it.
I wanted to say one thing that kind of Dave was talking about the surrealism. Did anyone else notice that most of the buildings in this movie are unusually large inside and like just a facade on the outside?
And then on
Right.
the outside, like seemingly hundreds of miles from any other structure.
Yeah.
right. It's just it is really surreal.
It's very surreal.
Yeah. And I loved the is that the one that has a guy gets the arrow to the neck,
Yeah.
pulls it out, and immediately
Yeah,
gets
gets
another
another
arrow to the
yeah.
same spot?
This is great.
that's the entire segment.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like he gets the arrow out
Second
and
to-
immediately gets shot by another one.
That is
Hanging
exactly
twice.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
And then the guy who shoots him down. Who shoots somebody swinging. He's
Yeah.
like, hold
Hold
still.
Hold still.
Hard still. It takes him 5 times. I also love
damn.
that guy because he immediately is just hard into, do you want to be my sidekick?
Yeah.
Because he's in the middle of committing a crime.
Right,
Right.
yeah. Yeah. And as soon as he sees the guys, he's like, shit. Just
And
rides
then
off.
once again, James Franco's like, "What's going on?" He gets arrested. Yeah, I do. I didn't know sidekick originates from cowboy lingo. Makes total
Oh, it
Yeah,
does.
neither did I.
sense. It's the low-paid people on the ride
Right.
who have to ride through the herd, kicking them in the side so they keep moving forward.
Right.
Yeah,
Just the second in command.
right. You're
Yeah.
not leading and you're not behind. You're in the middle, kicking their sides. I also really liked. Well, okay, so maybe I'm getting a false positive because it's Stephen Root, who was the voice of Bill Dauterive and Buck Strickland on King of the Hill. But my interpretation of why he sees, I have 2 interpretations of why he sees a beautiful girl. One is, and I don't think this is correct, but maybe the Coen brothers are making a nod to the fact that James Franco's a creep. I don't think it's that.
Maybe.
But the second one is when Buckley dies in The King of the Hill, at the funeral, Con Supanusimpone's eulogy.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, yeah, right? Okay, I was waiting for someone to remember.
I've been rewatching
so,
right now.
so good.
Yeah.
Is a story, Buddhist like fable about a guy who's being chased by tigers. He falls down a cliff. He grabs onto a branch. He looks up and he sees 2 hungry tigers. He looks down. He sees 2 hungry tigers. He knows for sure he's gonna die. Then he sees a strawberry on the branch and he plucks it and he eats it. And you know something? It was the best strawberry he ever tasted. So I thought it might have just been that, which is
I think,
James Franco gets to see a pretty face before he dies,
I
and he's
honestly-
like, "That's the most pretty face I ever did saw."
Yeah, I honestly think that's what it is because it's his last moments and he's just looking for something to like end on.
Yeah.
Like something positive out
Yeah.
there in this crowd of people, and he sees a pretty lady and he's like, all right, that's the last thing I want to see. Like,
I disagree.
Okay, well, what's the other interpretation?
My interpretation is just that it's kind of like in the Tom Waits segment where he calls it Mother McCree or God, you
Right.
know, or Mr. Pocket, happenstance.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it's in tune with all of what the Coen brothers do for a lot of their movies, which is just opportunities and things that are what you call a boon or a bust, or, you know, like the upticks and the downticks of nature they happen at random times. This one just happened to happen when, like, he couldn't do anything about it.
that is a good point because she likes him back. She smiles, so
Right.
it's like, man, I wish I met this girl like a year ago.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's just how that particular story went. Why? Because there's no poetic justice in Coen
Right.
Brothers movies. If you're bad, you don't get a bad end necessarily. Or if you're good, you don't get all the benefits. It's not neoclassical in its assessment of how endings work.
And so do you want me to go to the next segment? Meal ticket?
yeah,
That's the third one, right?
3 or 4? 3.
That's the
Three.
third one.
That's
Okay.
Liam Neeson
And Dudley Dursley.
Dudley Dursley.
Interestingly, it could have been called Taken.
It could have been called Taken.
Or Throne.
or dropped.
This introduced a new nightmare to me, which is having to be carried by a drunk Liam Neeson. Like I didn't even know that was something I'm
up the
afraid
stairs
of.
with this poor guy on his back.
Oh, right. Like you're a human backpack and
Yeah.
your carrier is drunk.
And Liam Neeson.
And Liam Neeson. He
Does,
doesn't.
what it matters that it's Liam Neeson?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Because he's
interesting.
enormous.
Yeah.
They don't ever speak to each other.
Yeah.
I was wondering, what if you guys like? Did we all have the same? Because in a world where there's no dialogue, did
In a
you
world.
did you assume silent movie? Did you assume that he loved that guy?
I think at the
Didn't
beginning,
care or hated him?
That's what was, I think that's
when you had nothing to go on.
yeah.
I think at the beginning I felt like here's the journey I went on, and I actually feel like this. While this is like the first genuinely I think gut wrenching moment of
Yeah.
the film, I feel like it needed another scene.
What scene?
I think it needed
After the end?
No, I think it needed a scene where the chicken earns more money than him.
Well, they show the chicken
show-
more popular than him.
Right.
And they
but,
show
like-
him riding in the back of the wagon and him looking at the chicken like, you motherfucker.
Right, and he's like eyeballing the chicken while he's feeding the chicken at the fire. Like
Yeah.
I feel like we needed one scene of, because it seems like he decides, like he doesn't even try the chicken out first before he kills
Well,
it.
that's what makes it great is that it is at first without any information. You're like, oh, these people have a big background together. He's caring so much for this man, and they're not talking because nothing needs to be
Like
said.
this
They're
hard
close.
life bonded them.
Yeah, and then it's that reveal of like, no, he would kill this man for a
in a
chicken.
heartbeat.
Yeah.
He doesn't ever care about this man.
Yeah,
Or what I thought would be because the reason I say that I felt like it needed something else is I didn't understand what was happening until it cuts to him until he's walking back toward the wagon and it cuts to him driving again. Like I didn't understand what he was doing. Like I thought he was trying to cross that bridge and he was gauging how deep the water was.
right.
Oh no!
But isn't that a good twist? The final shot, you realize, oh, that's what it
It
meant.
is
Isn't
like
that
because
how
what
it's supposed to function?
I thought they were building towards was I thought he was going to try to cross that bridge and something was going to happen. And he was going to have to pick whether to save the chicken or the guy,
yeah.
and he was going to save the chicken.
Which would functionally be
It
the
would
same
functionally be the same
emotional
thing.
impact,
Well,
yeah.
It's the same decision because he's clearly like, oh, I don't have enough money.
I don't have enough money to
support
feed
these-
both of
yeah.
these
The question
things,
is,
yeah.
I think, the end equation is just everyone knows a human life is worth more than a chicken life.
Yeah.
Like we all pretty much agree. But if money comes into the equation, maybe not.
Right. That's why I slightly disagree because I don't need
Sure.
that scene only because it's not. I don't think the Coen brothers are ever occupied once again about like how the jurisprudence of events. Like they don't care about. They don't want you to occupy your thoughts with whether or not it was a good idea to do something or bad. It was just an idea that someone had and they did it. Kind of like William H. Macy in Fargo. You know, like you can come down and say all the things about what makes him detestable, but ultimately he's just a guy with a plan, and it's a bad plan, and it backfires in his face. With Liam Neeson, I don't need the scene where he's like, oh, this chicken is a better alternative than, and it supersedes the morality of keeping this boy alive. It's more about just the fact that Liam Neeson was tired of doing some of that stuff, saw an opportunity, saw how easy it was to take care of. Like that's what the chicken feed is
But
represented.
it's interesting. He'd rather be alone than not alone. I would
they
just
never
rather
speak to
have-
each other.
I'd rather have another
he
human
needs
to
money,
talk to.
and it's tough. Like
Yeah.
it's clear, like the one consistency for Liam Neeson's character, who does not really change.
really
in
just wants
my
alcohol
opinion.
money. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
is just trying to get by, and it's
Yeah.
a lot of work to do. Like to make this whole apparatus work, right? And
Yeah.
he's the guy who's doing all of the mobility stuff because he's the only one who can. A chicken you can abuse a chicken by
Totally.
keeping it in a cage.
I think just because loneliness is so core to all real world humans, or like, I think a lot of people who project themselves into this situation, one of the surprises is you're like, oh, I would think he would want to keep a human around for the sake of loneliness, but no, he doesn't mind being alone.
Goes to the brothels.
Well,
that's
the
the brothel
that's
is the key scene.
strap
I
the
think.
chicken
The
on his
scene
back.
I
and,
wanted, if there was going to be another scene, is I still felt tortured by the mystery of, and I know they want me to feel this way, I wanted a scene where the performer speaks ever not in memorize dialogue.
Right.
I wanted to hear the performer say something about how he feels about Liam Neeson. I just wanted to know clearly, does the performer has always hated Liam Neeson or kind of sees Liam Neeson as a father figure or what?
I think you get it from the looks.
Yeah.
Like he never looks like lovingly at
No.
Liam. He always is glaring at him.
Or concerned. Like, yeah.
And it shows, I mean, as the audience dwindles, his performances, I think, arguably become more and more like raw and impassioned.
yeah.
Yeah.
As he's like, I'm performing for my life.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And having seen the ending, that all becomes clear. It just like.
So you think he knows Liam Neeson is a piece of shit?
I
Like,
think
the
so.
whole time?
I
Okay.
think like all those. Once you have all the information, then all the previous stuff becomes clear in that way. Like before, you just seeing it's like, oh, they're these two guys. They're these two hard luck guys. He's got Liam needs to take care of him, but it's not an easy life. And so when you seem like him breaking down during those last performances, I just took that as he's upset because they're not getting any money, and it's
Yeah.
literally the only thing he can do.
Yeah.
When he's with this prostitute, and the prostitute asks,
Very
if
mysterious.
he,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, does he want to have a time?
Literally,
kinda
my
stuff?
main question is,
And
what
he
does
says
that mean?
once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once, but I don't think it's a good
So-
idea anymore.
Yeah, and that to me is very telling because that means that they're at some point in the relationship. I think Liam Neeson was like, "Yeah, let's
Get him a
Business is
prostitute."
great, and I want to extend to you because I feel positive,
you're human,
or maybe
you
I'm
want some
drunk,
love
or
or
you
whatever.
want some of
Yeah.
that." But then once things got tighter and tighter and tighter, he's always going to be selfish and choose
Right.
him over, so they're no longer friends because they
Okay.
get the transactional
So you think that
aspect
scene
of the
was just like
relationship.
harkening back to a time when he had money, maybe he wasn't such a
Well,
dick all the time.
yes.
And the other
Yes.
reveal is that he does have money. Like he buys that chicken and he has the
He's a
wad of
giant
cash.
wad of cash.
Yes.
That's
And so
true.
it's the fact
Yes.
it's again more and more reveals that at first it's like, oh, this guy's just having a hard time, and then by the end it's like, no, he's a villain.
He's a miser.
like
yeah.
he's just like, oh, this isn't our money. This is the money I'm keeping.
He's
This
Stromboli
is my
from
money.
Pinocchio.
Yeah.
And he probably justifies it by thinking, I have to comb your fucking hair. I have to feed you.
Right.
Like, over time resents the burden of
Right.
living with a disabled person. But that's but he's your meal ticket. Anyway, yeah, good short. I did want to shout out
real depressing short.
two things that reminded me of really good manga artist Yoshihiro Tatsumi, who's like the grandfather of manga, has a collection called Pushman that just got re-released. It's really good, and it's this plot basically,
Oh, okay.
but different details. It's about in Japan on the subways, they're so crowded that there used to be a job where you push people in the door. Yeah. And it's about how you can be like lonely in that environment. And then what was the other one? I was like, oh yeah, has anyone seen Strocek, the Herzog? You must have, right, Abe?
I have not.
I don't think I've
actually.
seen that one.
No,
I
I
know
haven't.
exactly what you're talking about.
It's a
though.
movie where the first two acts are mind-numbingly boring, dry satire about how America is just like a banal system of crushing the spirit out of you. But then the last third is a shooting spree the guy goes on because his spirit has been crushed and he snaps.
Right.
And the thing that finally makes him snap is he's holding a gun because he's going hunting, and there's like a little roadside carnival, and he goes over to see, and he sees that there's a chicken that dances if you put a quarter in the box. And then he realizes all it is it electrocutes its feet. Like the floor becomes electrocuted if you put a
Right.
quarter in the box. And he's so disturbed by the plight that he breaks the chicken out, and with the chicken under his arm goes on a shooting spree.
That's so good.
And
man.
like the end of the movie is fucking amazing.
What a great
And he's
fucking-
like, "This is America. You put a quarter in the box to make me dance."
I thought there was going to be another scene in this vignette. I thought that there was like some key to how the chicken works.
I was curious.
well,
And
it's
thought
got
it
to
was
be
gonna
something
reveal
like
that he
that.
spent money and then has like just a normal
I thought
chicken.
he was gonna
Yeah.
get ripped off for sure.
yeah, but they didn't tell us whether or not
Well,
that's true. Or they
yeah,
just
because
didn't
it
have a
wasn't
statement.
the point. But
Exactly,
like,
once again.
it did like just the selfish part of me was like, how's that fucking chicken work? Like,
Yeah.
I want to know.
And
what
you know,
if it's
it's-
because the ringmaster has a series of cues and he doesn't tell Liam Neeson
Yeah.
Yeah.
how Liam Neeson's fucked?
It
Yeah.
like smells. It smells like chicken feet on the button, and he has the
Right,
thing,
you assume
know?
it's something like the electric shock or it's some kind of trick that makes
Right,
the
right.
chicken do that.
I think that's
He does buy the whole cart.
Yeah.
though,
right.
Yeah,
So,
he
but I
buys
think
the whole
that's
apparatus.
key. I think the key is whether or not something works in this world is not. That's not what the Coen brothers want
Our
us to be
focus on.
thinking.
That's not the
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't.
But we
not
were all
wonder.
thinking it.
right?
We were
We all had
we
to.
were all wondering how's the chicken doing that math.
As
up
a
with this
storyteller, that would be a good twist that could have happened. Is he goes
So-
to the next town and he starves because
Yeah,
he can't make
and
the
it's
chicken. Head.
overtly avoiding
But it
it
is.
as a statement.
And like he
Right.
gets snowed
Yeah.
in, and his last move because he's gonna die is he eats the chicken.
Gotta eat
And
the
then it's
chicken.
fucked.
That's what I also thought. I also thought that this, Dursley was just gonna go ham at one point
And eat
just
the
like
chicken.
not had anything, and just like
Oh,
bite
like,
the head off
bite
the,
the-
chicken.
Yes,
That's what I was thinking.
Then
of.
Liam Neeson makes him a geek in a sideshow.
Or no.
Tours that around.
Yeah.
Finally becomes
I mean, that's
Full circle.
kind of what he was doing already.
Right. That's exactly
right.
what he was
You
saying.
have to guess that the like bumpkin audience wasn't there because they're so moved by the
Found
performance.
him on the streets of
They're
London.
looking at his stumps.
I love
Yeah.
how this short has so much dialogue, and it feels like it doesn't have any
Feels like it has
dialogue.
zero.
Yeah, because none of the dialogue is between them, and that's the most important thing.
I'm willing to bet there's probably of actual dialogue that's not recited previously written dramas or
With the
speeches.
Constitution.
It's like a handful of lines.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
like
just
6
him
lines
and that.
long.
It's like
him
eight
and,
lines.
Him and
Him
the
and that
prostitute, I think,
yeah.
is the only. And then he says, he
sings,
like
yeah.
he's saying something to everybody. He's like, oh, is that we know,
Right.
He's
Found
like,
him on the streets of
yeah,
London.
he's muttering some stuff, and then he sings that song.
Yeah.
And then he says, "I'll buy that chicken" or something to that effect. I think that's
I don't
about
think-
it.
I don't
I
think,
think
they
they just
exchange.
show him-
I think they just show him
They
giving the
just
guy
show
money.
hands.
Yeah.
By the way, did you notice that? You know what that song
I'll
is
buy
about?
that chicken.
That song that he sings while
What?
he's drunk and he's like, "We're going into town." That song, if you just look at the words,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an original or it's an old song.
It's an old
like
song, I looked it up.
satisfaction over killing someone.
Yeah,
Oh, perfect.
It's like the noose.
it's a dude
tightened and everyone's
kills
excited.
a woman who
and
cheated
she
on
got
him,
home.
and they're
Yeah.
all into it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very dark song.
Also interesting, the movie opens and closes with Streets of Laredo. And in the end, Brendan Gleeson sings Scottish lyrics too. Like, I didn't know there was a different Streets of Laredo set of lyrics
Right.
that's about walking through a Scottish neighborhood and seeing a dead cowboy.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, should we move to number 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr.
Probably.
Pocket.
this
my
was
favorite.
like a palate cleanser.
Mr. Pocket.
All
the
Gold
gold pops
Valley.
out of your pan. Mr. Pocket.
What's the title of this one?
All Gold Valley?
All Gold Valley,
All
okay.
Gold Canyon.
All Gold Canyon.
That's it.
Which to me is just, and I don't think it's hard to think of this, but like the shots in the beginning and the end, and like you said, Abe, or whoever said it, I think Dave, I don't know, the balance with nature, the way
Yeah.
he's respectful and the villain is disrespectful. This has got to be the one that's just like, yeah, everything in the canyon's gold, not just the gold. Nature is gold.
Yeah.
The owl's gold. The look of the sunrise is gold. It's all fucking awesome.
This
This one is just about how like it rules, and here's a type of guy who really
Right.
appreciates it and treats it right.
Yeah.
And the song that Tom Waits is singing is a song about Mother McCree, and he also uses at one point when he finds gold, he goes Mother McCree. Like Mother McCree is another name for nature. Or
Mother
God.
Earth is God. Yeah.
And I think that that's what this space is the sacred space of like animals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they all are there, and then like what's the
He takes
what-
days to listen to the earth and follow its instructions to get to the pocket.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
in terms of the image that they show before all the vignettes, I forget what the caption is, but it's more or less that like none of God's handiwork was,
Yeah, it's-
it was only God's
no,
handiwork.
no sign of man or his handiwork.
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
Unless
anywhere.
he's a
Yeah.
sweep of the land. or
Right,
whatever.
exactly, and I think that sets the stage, especially when he arrives being man. All the butterflies go away, the deer goes away,
Yeah,
the
it's-
fish
the
even
minnows
go
go
away.
away.
It's
Yeah.
that realization that we're just such a disruption.
Yeah, and then
And you
then
have
we
to
leave.
be very careful
Yeah.
to not disrupt. Like, you can do it, but you
And
have
they
to
come
be this
back.
guy.
Right. It's the realization that the world is just like, these guys are dicks. Like,
But I do like that.
That's
if-
what that deer is thinking.
Yeah,
when
If
he's
you
like,
Oh,
take it at
shit.
all, sorry, you're saying again. If you take it at all in like the climate change direction, or even our stewardship of the earth, even loosely, I do love the final image. Well, the final image is the owl being like, "Good job, Tom Waits."
Yeah.
But
You only ate one of my children.
but I do like that it's the grave mound, and then the deer comes and grazes directly off the grave. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry, humans will eventually die, and nature will recover.
Yeah.
Like, it's a temporary disruption.
And
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the duality that the Coen brothers love, because like a hole that you dig can be a place to find gold or
your own
grave.
death.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
and it's both. It's like
Yeah.
Schrodinger's hole.
And just like No Country, you can get shot in the back in a hole that is clearly, if you're following storytelling conventions, you're like, oh, he was digging his own grave the whole time.
Yeah,
Right.
But then it missed all the vitals. And he's like, you measly skunk, you
Didn't
missed
hit
me.
anything important.
It went
Think
through and
anything
through.
important.
Guts.
Guts is all you had. Like all you hit was my gut.
Yeah,
Tom Waits.
yeah, Tom
Screaming about his guts.
Tom Waits just making sounds.
Oh yeah. I also have to state this is the second of all of them that I would have watched 6 hours of. It's just Tom Waits prospecting. Like
Yes.
it wouldn't even have to be a story
That's
at
it.
all.
Just him
Yeah.
digging holes and muttering to himself.
God,
That's all I want to
how
see.
amazing would be like a Odd Couple movie with Tim Blake Nelson and Tom
No,
Waits just
man.
being their characters from
Yes.
this movie,
Singing
Just, like,
wildly
piling around.
Oh,
different
yeah,
songs.
Buster Scruggs and this dude, yeah.
Yeah.
But they're in the 80s, like Perfect Stranger style, and they have to
Right.
share an apartment.
I love your warbling, stranger.
There was a good tweet.
Motherfucker.
Try to listen to Mr. Pocket.
I prefer to talk to myself.
There was a good tweet. I'm not gonna find it about
Is it-
the Coen brothers being like, well, "Who should we get
Yep.
to play a prospector?"
Right, it's kinda
Tom
on the
Waits,
nose.
I'll do it. How did you
Yeah.
get into this office?
Who let you in this office? We're already in production.
You could pay
I'm
me
the
in
pros-
rusted Chevy parts.
He arrived on set wearing all of that.
And he will take those rusted Chevy parts and turn it into a musical instrument.
Right,
That's what he does.
Right.
I
And live in it after.
Yeah.
It's also a really right-wing evangelical Christian I talk to a lot online because I find it interesting to talk to him.
Sure.
And he just watched Buster Scruggs, and he tweeted how rare it is for them to have a happy ending.
Yeah, this is the only one in the
Since
film.
Intolerable Cruelty,
Right.
and Oh Brother, or yeah, Oh
It
Brother is
doesn't
probably
end
the last
as
notable.
bad as it can.
No,
Yeah.
I think it like I gotta say, and it's true. I rarely get this from the Coens, and it's nice for a change of pace. It's nice to know that the Coens can also make me feel like this made me feel like when I was a little kid and I saw Rookie of the Year, like a sports movie ending. Like it felt
Yeah.
triumphant to me.
Yeah.
When he doesn't die and he kills the bad guy and he leaves with the gold,
Right.
I was like, fucking yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause,
We
like,
see that-
finally.
Yeah.
It's like Anton Chigurh reversed, where it's like, oh, he could have easily died, but the bullet just happened to miss, so he
Yeah.
wins. And you're
Right.
like, finally, random chance can sometimes be you win, like the good guy
Oh,
wins.
it's just delightful, and like I also did the same thing where I rewatched it over Thanksgiving with my folks
see how they react,
and brother.
yeah.
And you could just feel the air from the room just get stolen when he gets shot.
You're like,
And
Fuck,
then when he's
really?
just sitting there bleeding out.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he only stole one egg. You know, like he names his gold. He's
Yeah.
so kind.
and even says,
and
like, Mr.
wonderful.
Pocket, like, don't worry, I'll only take half of you. Like,
It's like-
it's like
He's just
the nicest
wholesome
man.
and wonderful, and even though he's just trying to get by, like he's
Yeah.
one of the best people in the entire movie in terms of just like he means to do well. You know, like
Well, at the very least, he's not out to hurt anyone or,
Right.
or anything.
Yeah.
He's not out causing harm, really.
right.
It
And
is
then he just
interesting
gets
that
shot in the back,
He
and he
wants
sits there for an
gold.
agonizingly long
So
time,
good.
smoking a cigarette.
Which
I mean, they're masters of that's
Yeah.
what, and of course, when he's sitting there with just the timing, I love the dual functionality, filmmaking wise, where you're like, oh, this is time they're putting in for us to ruminate on how much it fucking sucks he's dead and be sad, and then it'll probably fade to black. No,
Yeah.
it's so you'll be flabbergasted when it turns out he's not dead.
Well, you see the owl flies by.
right.
Yeah, he
that I
watches
thought
the
was
owl.
a nice touch.
I think that's what tipped me off. I was like, oh shit, he's still alive.
Also, did you notice
Like-
when the bad guy shoots him in the back and sits to roll a cigarette, you can see the owl in the background
Yeah.
leave its perch and fly away.
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly.
Oh, yeah, okay. But I
Yeah.
thought you were saying the owl comes back.
No, he flies.
He watches.
It's
he like
just that
turns and
moment
looks
where
at
you realize, oh, this is still
Yeah.
nature still is
Like 'cause-
governing here.
Yeah, like the bad guy kind of gets distracted by the
Right.
owl. Like he turns to look at it fly away.
Right. He did not enjoy
see,
that.
I took that to mean he was dead because
Oh,
I thought
okay.
that was his spirit leaving.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was so surprised.
I
he
don't think it
wasn't
means
dead.
either. I think it's, but it I think the reason that they put it is there's this kind of poetic kind of like
Well, the owl's the watcher of the
But
woods.
the owl bookends
Yeah.
it. It's like the owl's, yeah, exactly what you said. Like it's just letting us know that nature's still watching all this. Like the owl is seeing all this happen.
right.
The owl is the Uatu, the watcher.
It
of
is.
The
Well,
animal
they cut
kingdom.
to him a few times of him just of the owl watching the canyon, and the owl is watching Tom Waits take its eggs, and they cut to it a few times of it just.
How high can birds count?
I can birds count.
Interestingly, I think that's got to be a reference
And
to the chicken math.
Right.
I did look up while we were talking. Chickens can do math, and they can be trained to do math just through repetitious training. So it doesn't have to be a trick. It can be a trained chicken.
But the chicken also has to be able to understand
Understand
English
the language,
and
yeah.
then read numbers.
11 add 1.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. No, this was a
That
study
chicken has
saying
multiple
11
talents.
twice.
This was one of those tests where it's like it gets more food if it knows basic math, and it was able to do it. But
That's a bummer because we're eating something that does math.
yeah,
Like we should never eat something that can do
I'm
math.
switching to parrot meat only.
Yeah,
Talking, that's
Parrots
fine.
deserve it.
I also realized, and it hit me again. I got a second emotional wallop from All Gold Canyon when I realized this exact plot played out in Red Dead Redemption 2, but I was the evil guy.
Right. Well,
I found an old man prospecting. I camped for several days and watched his bag get bigger and bigger, then unceremoniously shot him in the head
That's
and took the gold
amazing.
to a
Yeah.
fence.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Oh.
oh no, I lived this
It's
from the
good to know.
back.
I didn't
It's
realize
good
you
to
could do
know.
that. Now I know.
I will say the villain also smokes cigarettes like Red Dead Redemption. He has one drag and throws it away.
Yeah.
Man, this actually, I did the opposite. As I watched this and then I was playing it and I ran into a prospector and like raised my gun and was like,
I can't do
This is Tom Waits.
Yeah,
It's Tom Waits.
I can't kill Tom Waits.
Yep, I did it because I played that
I
game
mean-
before I saw this movie. I bet I wouldn't if I had seen the
Yeah,
movie.
well,
already.
now that
is
you mention it,
amazing.
now that I know
it's
that.
weird because they're both virtual. So
How
it's-
much
what does
money
it
did you
mean?
get though? Because I might do it now.
Like $250.
Yeah,
sort of worth it.
that's
It's
a
worth
lot
it.
of money. That's
Yeah.
a lot of money in Red Dead.
Because I've seen him multiple times. So yeah.
I can afford a couple of murders. My good cowboy meter is all the way full.
Yeah.
This is neither here nor there,
You're a
and I'll
good
move
old
on
cowboy.
very
I'm a good
quickly.
old cowboy.
But I just need to say somewhere publicly so I can start processing the grief. I met my first cougar in Red Dead, which is crazy because I'm almost to the end.
Right.
And for the first time, I saw a cougar. And you want cougar skins for various reasons.
Right.
I shot it once in the head. And this had also never happened to me in the game. It didn't die, but it also didn't run away.
Yes.
Which can sometimes happen.
It's really
but it
fucked
hadn't
up.
happened to me up to that point. So I walked up to it, and it was literally making like pre-recorded like a cat screaming in pain sounds.
Right.
Yep.
As blood like very realistically like shot out of the hole in its head, and it kept eye contact with me going
Yeah.
like, why did you do this? Why did you do this? And I didn't know you could press triangle to like stab it in the
Yep.
heart. So I stood there waiting for like a full 60
Oh,
seconds as
God.
it slowly died. And I was literally like, I don't want to play this game anymore.
I've had a few
ever again.
I always had a few games where you kill a big cat, and I'll always like kind of turn to my cat and be like, sorry.
Or when
Like,
you shoot a
sorry about
dog and
this.
it makes a sound that's
Yeah.
exactly like a whimpering dog, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh no.
It's like it's like I just need to see a rainbow right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Very well rendered rainbows in that game. Should we move on?
Yeah.
Number 5.
Number 5, the longest.
The gal who got rattled.
Yeah.
The longbow.
This is the one that I would call the most challenging, or at least in the sense that
Well-
all the normies, like non-film buffs that I was hanging with who watched it, were all like, as you hear people say about Coen Brothers things, I didn't like that one because at the end of it's just going to suddenly be unhappy. Like, why do it?
Right.
Why make the movie?
It's also
And the answer is
This-
because life is like that sometimes.
this is apparently the hardest to shoot for kind of obvious reasons. I was looking in the behind the scenes.
Fucking wagon train.
Yeah, one of my
Yeah.
favorite. It was I won't get it exact, but one of my favorite things one of the Coen brothers said about this whole production, because they went to these very specific locations that were
Right.
remote, and he was just like, "Yeah, it would have helped if we were younger. Like
Yeah.
that would have been a big help." And
Yeah.
so like that's this. Apparently, they had like a company make all the pieces of the wagon train and stuff and ship it to this location, and they had the actual oxen there, and like it was a big fucking production. A real pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's. I think it's. In my opinion, this one is the jugular of like going for like in terms of the thematic involvement of all of them. This is the one that kind of they elucidate the most. And it's usually through the 3 conversations where they get kind of deep between Nap or Billy and Alice. Especially the one where they talk about how the straight is the gate and narrow is the path.
Yeah, about being impulsive or like is a bad thing,
Well,
and of
like
course
that,
it ends up being her freaking downfall.
But I also really like the idea that unlike her and the person she was supposed to just meet and marry sight unseen, they actually connected over shared values. Like they both have an outlook that's not popular in this world.
Yeah.
But they've shared like certainty is seldom justified, if ever. Certainty, yes, it's the easy path,
That's
just
it,
as you
certainty.
said. And I'm like, oh, I bet everyone else in the wagon train would disagree with them. That's
Right.
why they actually do kind of
Right.
have a vibe.
Yeah, exactly, because they're not confident. Like, that's the whole downfall. That's why we saw the brother downfall. He's a failure. Why? Because he didn't change his mind and have opinions about stuff. He always said, like, President Pierce is the greatest president. You know?
And
it's her downfall of, I'm certain, because he says shoot yourself if she doesn't question it at all.
Which is once again, to me, the Coen brothers saying, like, regardless of what, like, the certainty that the two, like, Nap and Alice have in that conversation that, like, fosters their love, that they have certainty that there is no certainty in a way. Like, they are embracing something, and the fucking rub of it is that nature doesn't care what you embrace. It just is. It just operates like a machine.
I think it's also very, I mean, it seems clearly intentional to me that this is their gender dynamics one. Because, like, literally you have the symbolism of, at the dance, the man dances with a doll of a woman, so he controls her every action, like her feet are glued to his feet. And then, of course, her life is being managed by men and then is brought to an end by a man telling her what to do, and then she does it because a man told her to. So I think there's also definitely a lot to be said about this is also their nod to the Wild West was tough. Even tougher if you're a woman, let's not forget. Like, it's tough to be a woman in this world. Like, you don't get to decide if your dog lives or dies. And I think there might also be a nod to, I agree, her brother died because he's unadaptable, which you have to be in the West. And also, I think because he's effeminate. And I'm not saying that, like, I think it's bad to be effeminate, but I think the Western world is like, shoot him up and spit him out because it doesn't abide effeminate men.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just...
That dog was
It was
great.
real sad when she died.
Yeah, this is a real fucking heartbreaker.
How fucking cool is Mr. Arthur?
That was another...
He's
Mr.
a
Arthur...
bastard, though.
Mr.
He's also
Arthur
cool,
has like fucking 3 words, and then all of a sudden
He's just
he's
in his element.
he's like a superhero.
He's just like, oh, here we go.
He's like, all I've ever said to you is yep and nope, but by the way, you're about to get raped horribly. Now think about that and consider shooting yourself. Bye.
Yeah.
oh, they're gonna come back. Oh, this is gonna be a good fight. Like, it's just so seasoned.
Yeah.
So
Also, I
fucking
felt like
seasoned.
Dog Hole, that's got to be related to Pan Shot.
Yeah,
right?
right. Dog hole.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
I wanted to see Root come out and be like, you're overmatched here. I'll help you.
Yeah, it's
Dog
appears
Hole,
with
Pan
his
Shot.
hands. Yeah.
And then Tom Waits arrives. He's like, Mr. Pocket.
Mr. Bucket.
He starts digging in the dog holes.
Calls in a bunch of giant owls to swoop in with the One Ring. Did especially you guys, I want to know, did it feel, which is what a lot of people who aren't like Coen fanatics said to me, did it feel like, why was it so long if it's going to end that way? Like, did it feel like a waste of your time? The whole middle part where she slowly
I liked having...
changes?
This was like, I guess it's the length, is that it's felt like the most complete story of all of these, even though they're all complete stories.
Yeah.
It's got the most fleshed out characters.
Yeah, like I felt like we needed time to establish this man's relationship with her before it's taken away. It couldn't have just been like really quick. Like it needed that time.
Right.
We wouldn't have cared otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, this is a whole very well storied subgenre of Westerns, is the one where there's not a bunch of shootouts. It's mostly focused on like a love that develops on the wagon train. That there's been that movie many times.
There's something I wanted to talk about in this one, which is just, it's a real quick transitional, like it's a transitional like beat, and it's also one of the funniest fucking jokes in the thing to me, which is Elijah, which is the boy who's walking backwards.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's so
I'm
good.
gonna walk
I'm gonna
backwards
walk
all the way
backward
to
all the way to
Oregon.
Oregon. Don't do that. I said don't do that. And then the
With
dad
a
takes a
stick?
stick. Don't do that. And that's all.
Walk forwards,
And
boy.
I think there's something in that. I think there's something about like the parents and like the tradition of the West, or like and by extension like all of our lives, where it's like this is how society works. I'm certain that if you were to be a guy who walks backward, you would be considered crazy and a fool, and you are wrong for thinking
Yeah, you'll
it,
die
and
in
it
the
needs to be
gutter.
outrooted from your
Yeah.
existence. I think that's what they mean. That's another level
Yeah.
of certainty that they're trying to debunk.
This
in my
one is
opinion.
definitely about those systems that govern the
Like,
Wild
I
West.
want Elijah
Yeah.
to fucking walk backwards for
Right.
the rest of his life, and
Yeah.
he'd be so happy, and it would be amazing.
And what I mean, that's why it starts with a perfect visual metaphor for that, which is a woman explaining how the nervous system works and a guy
Yeah.
mansplaining. That's crazy. It doesn't work
Yeah.
like that. Even though what she said, we as modern audience know. Actually, that is how the nervous
Yeah.
system works. The
Also-
tendrils report back to the brain, which I surmise is how the body makes note of its functions. And he's
Right.
like, that's madness.
which of course it makes sense then that he dies very quickly, and there's no like. It's like he coughs once,
Yeah.
and then immediately he's dead like
I
the
love
next night.
that Western trope being subverted is you're like, oh, they're starting the arc of him getting sick. Oh, he's dead already.
He's just
Okay.
straight up dead.
It's like
She's sitting in a wagon with a dead body just riddled with cholera.
Yeah.
it's antithetical. It's the antithesis to the that Mitchell and Webb look sketch where it's like. A man has a cough and it's just a cough and it's fine.
Yeah, they do a sketch right
Because
now.
they're like,
Why
I thought
would-
you had
because-
consumption.
In
Why?
real
'Cause I
life,
coughed into a
I
handkerchief.
just had a cough for a while.
All right, let's close her out. Number 6. And this was the one where I
You
jumped.
disagreed.
I only disagree because, I mean, we'll never know because the Coens won't admit it. Sure, it could be an adaptation of the thing you said, but I think it's very clearly an adaptation of No Exit by Sartre.
It absolutely is.
Okay. In the way that Oh Brother is the
They're
Odyssey.
both. They're very
Nerds.
similar. They're very, very similar.
Bunch of people on a wagon.
Well,
that's all.
On a
it
I will
is.
say
Stagecoach.
the people who I know who hated this segment, the reason they hated it is they didn't pick up on what. Can I ask? Can we all agree that they were killed and this is the journey to the
Yes,
afterlife?
they are
Yeah,
dead.
They're,
More or
all,
less,
they're all
yes.
dead.
People
Yeah.
who hated this one,
Yeah.
it's like going to see Mother and not knowing that it was an analogy.
Yeah.
Right.
So like, I think you just didn't get it if you didn't like it.
Right.
No Exit is about 3 people who are trapped in a room and they don't know why,
Hell
and they
is other
slowly
people,
realize they
yeah.
all fucking hate each other,
Right.
and it turns out it's hell. So I just thought it had to be that because you got the 3, you got the 2 Reapers, and the 3 people really get on each other's nerves,
Yeah.
and they are explicitly totally different worldviews. One believes that you're either hale or frail. One believes you're either just unlucky or lucky, and one believes
You're all
that you're either
Correct.
a sinner or not a sinner.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Moral
time
hygiene.
daily.
No, the Reaper says, "Well, I believe you're either just dead or alive." Of course, he would think that. He's
Yeah.
the Reaper.
People
That
are
was
fair
the-
like ferrets.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
The
Oh
Ferris
yeah,
thing.
and one believes no, they're all the same.
Yeah.
By the
like
way,
ferrets.
my brother pointed out, and I totally missed it. But then when he said, I was like, "Oh my god, he is! Is that guy's in Major League as the guy who's like he hates Joe Boo?"
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
up your butt, Joe
Yeah,
Boo.
That's
he's
amazing.
Like, people are ferrets, as far as
So I
I'm
guess
concerned.
my question, though, to like unpack this is, if it is the afterlife, then what's the hotel? Is it hell, heaven, or purgatory, or none of the above?
Fort Morgan.
And what's the dead body
That's
on the top that's going to a special different destination?
That's what
are
threw
these
me
things?
off, and I decided like, okay, I can't take this too literally because that made like the most of the time when they'd say like, oh, he doesn't stop, I was like, oh, they're dead.
Yeah.
And then they take out a dead body, and that was when it was like, wait,
Well, if
are they dead? What's that guy?
I think that guy's going to heaven because they're carrying up the stairs
You're
toward
right.
light.
To the light.
And he's not interacting. And he's
Jacob's ladder.
He's and they mention it, I think. And
They
he's
mentioned Jacob's ladder.
Absolutely.
is the
he's
way to
wrapped
have
up in a cloth and kept on the roof, separate from these people, so they don't interact with each other. And then they're sort of like they're like apologetic about dropping the body or whatever. You know,
Yes.
it's like
Yeah.
I think.
Mr. whatever.
Yeah, what was his
Oh,
name?
and he says he'll stay in
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Clarence.
what's his name's room?
Yeah.
Brendan Gleeson, who I would say looks more angelic than the other guy who has the fucking devil mustache and beard.
Yeah, he's like Applegate from
And he
the
says
80s.
I'm the distractor and Brendan Gleeson's the thumper.
Yeah.
Which is more of a straightforward job. I don't trick you. I'm the one who actually goes, sorry, buddy, you're dead. Let's
Yeah.
go.
I can thump.
I can thump. I'm a good thumper.
But he's definitely the more sinister of the two as well. Like
Yes.
not just the way he looks, but the way he speaks and like
Yeah.
the whole speech he gives.
His
It's like
fucking eyes.
bone chilling.
The
Yeah.
one where what he likes to do is look into your eyes as you
Yeah.
die and
Yeah.
see if you
Yeah.
can figure out what it's all about.
I also want to just throw a nod to, because watching it the second time, I like felt it in the first one viewing, but
Yeah.
the second one I noticed it. Watch the entire scene again and notice how the lighting from
Yes.
like sunset, day, sunset, night, based off is like a barometer of the conversation about how
Ooh.
dark and like ghost tale it gets.
Yeah, it just gets darker and darker.
and it like becomes its darkest obviously the second that one of the ferrymen starts talking about like thump thump thump. No one
Right.
can be out there in this kind of storm. Like this is inhuman.
There's
Yeah.
also like nothing out the windows.
There's
It's like
nothing, yeah.
clouds.
And
There's an occasional tree. But
and the
that's it.
ferryman or the stagecoach driver is essentially just expressionless and kind of haunting in
Yeah.
like a Sleepy Hollow kind of way.
And
Yeah.
that's
You don't-
got to be why they chose to shoot it so basically. Like,
Right.
it almost draws attention to itself in the sense that you're like, we're going to go 6 minutes with just shots and reverse shots in the carriage. Okay.
Right. Because you can't go outside of
Because
it.
what would they show outside?
Yeah.
It's the afterlife. Yeah.
He also rides off with their luggage too.
He does,
Right,
yeah.
yeah. That was to me what, like if
Yeah.
you're looking for I know because it's all
You're not
metaphor.
gonna need this.
It doesn't matter whether or not it's literally they're dead or not to me as much. But to me I was just like and then there's a joke of they just left the luggage. Well, then they're dead because that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, and yeah, even beyond a joke, I think that is like one last clue for people who are maybe not
Right.
getting it is like not a single one of them stops to be like to get their luggage from the roof
That's a
or to
good
like
point,
object.
yeah.
Like you would think like Tyne Daly with the kind of character that she is would be
Right.
like, I need my bags. Like,
Right.
Yeah, they all
Right.
know. They all know
They all
at the
know.
end.
Yeah, they
like
all
they're
know.
scared. Except, and then the last guy
Well,
kind of
those-
embraces
Why
it
is
and
Renee
walks
last,
in.
do you think? Just to have
'Cause
a
I
moment
th-
where it's like one of them accepts it and
I
it's
think-
like, all right, I guess we're dead.
yeah, I think because he was the most worldly.
He's
Yeah.
able to accept it fast.
Like,
He also
yeah.
espouses kind of the Coen brothers' belief
But, like,
about
life is for the moment.
cards teach you. At one point,
Yeah.
he's like, you don't need any educator. You don't need someone to tell you what moral hygiene is. Like, you don't know to like. There's many types of
Just
love.
play the
Your experience
cards,
is what
yeah.
like is the great teacher for us all, kind of thing.
You've seen them, you play them.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it was showing that he's got it and accepts it, whereas I think the other two characters are not
They'll have to
accepting
eventually.
it. They
soon,
will eventually.
but not
Yeah.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still like pretending that they're just going to stay in this hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think you're right about Mr. Thorpe going to heaven because I'm now remembering a line where they're like, well, he's going somewhere else, but he paid quite a price to do that. Or like they mentioned that it's way more expensive to go farther away.
Yeah.
So I think they mean like he had to live a good life or he sacrificed himself heroically or something. Like it's expensive to get to heaven. It's hard to
Right.
do.
Right, and also that at one point they're like, "What did he do?" Like, if you're bounty hunters, like, "What did he do?" And they're like, "We don't know."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not what our part in this whole circus is. Our
Right.
circus is just get to Fort Morgan.
Well, I also love, I mean, a lot of films can work this through this lens, which makes it a false positive a lot of the time. But you know, when you say, what if the film itself is a metaphor for their relationship to filmmaking? It can almost work with too many movies and like it gets
Right.
blurry. But I do think with this one, it's interesting or I like the idea that the Reaper wants to know what the meaning of life is. And they do that by studying humans from birth to death. And she goes, well, does anyone ever figure out the meaning of life? And he goes, how should I know? I just watch.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is,
I just
filmmaking.
enjoy watching the light come out of their
How
eyes.
do the Coen brothers know if they're right? They don't. They just observe things and regurgitate them back. And I think you could also take that for,
Yep.
I mean, all Gold Canyon. But digging for gold is too lazy of a filmmaking metaphor. I don't think they'd do that.
Well,
Maybe.
I mean, they did. They kind of did.
So the guy in all black who shoots him in the back is like Peter Travers of the Rolling Stone, giving them a bad review.
Yeah.
You measly skunk, you didn't earn it. You didn't make lady killers, we did.
We did. Damn it. Intolerable cruelty is a fine
It's
film.
underrated, damn it.
God, they made the lady
All
killers.
you got is my guts.
You got my
Just
gut.
my guts. Oh, Mother McCree.
Oh,
Fucking Tom Waits.
I love their. I want to know. I want to be on fly on the wall whether or not Tom Waits was the guy who thought of this, or this is the Coen brothers telling him to do this. Which is after he's shot, he's like realized it's fine. He's like, we're on the mend now. He sleeps and he wakes up in the morning and he has some coffee, and then Tom Waits, because he's an old man, does this thing where he has this breathing where he's like.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And I was like, "Oh my God, is he gonna
Is he having a
die
heart
right now?
attack?
Is
Yeah.
this just a thing where it's just
Yeah.
like he thought it was fine, but
he
it
dies
wasn't?"
of old age,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then he doesn't, and it's just that to me is such a nice little touch, and I don't know what it
It's
means.
like, but it's you can get old
But
and
it
have heart
terrified me.
palpitations. It doesn't mean you're gonna die right now.
right,
Right.
it
Yeah.
terrified me in the moment because
Yeah.
I was like so cheering.
Whenever
Yeah.
one of their best tricks is fully embracing that anything can happen.
Yeah.
Like at the end of No Country, where you're like, I don't know, invincible demonic force gets hit by a car. Why not?
Yeah.
And he's fine. Why not?
Yeah, then he's
Whatever.
totally fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Then
you-
why'd he get hit by a car? Well, I don't know, because he could have.
That was-
it could happen.
That was yeah. The whole end of No Country. I was like, I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. I was like, I know this means something.
Oh, I do
What does
feel.
it mean?
I feel like it's like the end of this one where they're hammering home what they mean. In case you didn't get it, nothing matters. I think it's them saying like, in case you didn't get it yet, this movie is about.
Well,
There is no controlling force.
Yeah.
Because in the third act, you even have. We should cover this on Coen Brothers, but his whole game with the coin loses meaning. He breaks the
Right.
rules. How can he break the rules? That's movie logic. Well, in real life, he could do whatever the fuck he wants.
yeah.
yeah.
Because there are no rules.
oh, is that the scene where Josh Brolin's wife is like, the coin's not doing, it's you.
And he's like, no, it's the coin. And he flips the coin and she wins the right to live. And then he goes, no, you're right. Whatever. I'll kill you anyway.
Right.
Is the implication.
It's because he leaves with his
He
shoes
leaves
off.
and he scrapes blood off his
Yeah,
shoe. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same thing in this movie about. So he has Dead Man in the first vignette.
Yes,
he
we
has
didn't
Dead
mention
Man's
that.
Hand, which is
Aces over eights.
Aces
Right.
over eights, which
And
is
his back
notorious.
is facing the door,
The
which is
door,
how
yeah.
Wild Bill
Yeah.
Hickok died.
Wild Bill Hickok. It's
Yeah.
it's the Deadwood or Tombstone story.
Yep.
OK Corral as well. And so it's this mythic kind of card hand. And they say like you play them, you've seen it, you play it. That's actually a pretty great hand. Like he's
Oh, yeah.
dealt
Oh, you
a
mean in
great
terms
hand.
of
In terms
positive
of
two-pair,
poker,
yeah.
it's it can be a full house very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's two pair,
Yeah.
and one
And
of them,
ace
and
high,
one of them
yeah.
is ace high. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's a good hand.
And he also has a jack, which is if someone else had the others.
I guess it implies that legend already existed in this universe. He knows that's the dead man's
right,
hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
right. Which obviously it's a nod to he's gonna die, but it's also a nod to like the original Aces and Eights is just that like Hickok had a good night of poker. It's like Casey at bat, but the reverse, which is that poem about the guy who
Yeah.
always hits home runs.
And then he finally fails.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
Hickok's story is much the same, or at least that's the fable, is that like he was he was well known, he was even notorious for gunslinging, and then he had a nice little end of his life, and he had a good poker night, and then he was shot in the back.
Right.
And
By someone who's like, I want to prove I'm good at gunslinging, so I'm
Yeah.
going to shoot you in the back.
right, it's kind of like a Richard Corey or
Yeah.
something, and it's so weird in this one where you have Tim Blake Nelson, who is constantly winning up to this point by just all of the
By the
points.
fact that he can't be beaten. He
kills,
just wins.
Yeah, he's just always the best.
Well, it's the same because it winds up the same way, right? Like it's like there's always. I think the text at the end of the story is like there's always, and eventually that kid got replaced by another kid because
Right,
there's always
yes.
a kid, and that's like it's like a condensed version of Wild Bill, is Buster Scruggs' story because he's the rootinest tootinest gunslinger,
Right,
and then he just
yeah.
gets killed by some guy who.
And you see him, you play him, then speaks to all 6 of the stories.
Yeah, you play
It's
the hand
very
you're
much
dealt.
their
Yeah.
philosophy.
If I had one question to ask the Coen brothers, about this movie.
Which one's Joel?
Who are you? Why are you in my house?
Middle names? Middle names, both of y'all.
My question would be: is the point of Buster Scruggs just the Big Lebowski Sam Elliott monologue? Because he's like, and I guess that's just the way that time goes. You know,
The human comedy goes on perpetuating itself.
You got
I'm
me
rambling.
again.
Yep, I think they're just saying that all human drama is either you eat the bar or the bar eats you.
The bar too.
Damn.
That brings us full circle since we're
Yeah.
talking Buster Scruggs.
Yeah.
Should we wrap up?
Yeah.
I just want to note that when the book closes, the final image is a horse's butt. It's
Yeah,
cute.
it was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Cute little
Oh
butt.
yeah, that's the titles are weirdly cheap. Like this is some Hallmark Channel
Oh, yeah.
titles.
Yeah.
Like-
It's like Reader's Digest.
Like
but
it's like super basic.
Yeah.
Both the beginning and
Right.
end titles are very very basic.
And if you pause it, you can see that the inscription at the beginning of the book, the fictional book Ballad of Buster Scruggs, is dedicated to Gaylord Gilpin, who used to tell such good stories
Oh, yeah.
around the campfire that they would all come in their pants. That's the acknowledgement.
right. And I think
Wow.
I think that's the point of the
They're just saying,
the
gather
horses-
around, here
the,
come good
the,
stories.
the
So
horse
good.
butt is that they're like saying like maybe this all had a point, or maybe we're just a bunch of horses.
Maybe it's just
Yeah.
BS, the Ballad
And
of
maybe
BS.
we all came in our pants.
and maybe we came in our pants. What a good time!
Yeah.
Buy our films.
Yes. I'm
What a
gonna
great film.
actually I'm gonna go home and watch some. I think
Yeah.
because I've not seen it. Like I haven't seen Blood Simple.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really good.
Haven't seen Miller's Crossing.
Oh, it's great.
Have you seen Blue Ruin?
No.
Not a Cohen, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Blood Simple's the granddaddy of like everything you appreciate about Blue Ruin. It's like
Oh.
so. If you know you're indie and you know you have to get attention with low budget, and this is all you have, so fucking smart
Nice.
at every level of execution. My voice is failing.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
this
I'm
has been a great episode of what do we
It's a
call this?
crossover
All
supersode.
Coen Brothers.
We just watched
just
about
watched
Buster
Buster
Scruggs.
Watching Buster
Yeah.
Scruggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we did this.
We
yeah,
did
me
it.
too. This
It's
was
been
great.
way too long since we've been on podcasts together, even
Yeah.
though we're like good friends in real life.
I stopped recording
Sure.
30 seconds ago.
Oh, you did?
No.
I was like gonna cry.
Really? It's meaningless if you said it in real life to your friends. You're like, it
Yeah.
has to be on tape.
No, it needs to be
has be on tape,
captured for-
because then I can prove that I'm not a
Yeah.
I
psychopath.
have friends.
It's true.
Yeah.
And that I have friends.
And then I have see, they're real. They're real.
I talked to
They're
them.
real, Mom.
There's a recording of it.